Hello students, welcome to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University, Hyderabad. I am Dr. Sonal Mubar Roy and we are here to look at the course Social Issues, Policies and Development, wherein Block 5 talks about contemporary concerns related to social and human development. Today we will be studying Unit 15, which focuses on participatory development. This course is part of Sociology UG second year, semester 3. So, in this segment we are talking about varieties of participation. Participation exists in different forms and levels in development processes. So, we are talking about people's participation here. Scholars have classified various participation categories based on degree of involvement of the people, the decision making power and control over development activities. The major contributors in this segment are Einstein, Nelson, UN Capital Development Fund and Pretty. So, if we were to look at and understand as students of sociology, Einstein's level of participation, they have been classified at 8 levels of participation, which incorporate manipulation, therapy, informing, consultation, placation, partnership, delegated power and citizen control. Lower levels represent symbolic participation, while higher levels indicate real empowerment and control by citizens. So, a wide, so to say, a threshold of participation has been presented here through 8 levels, and then we are looking at how how much intensity of participation people have, rather it being a symbolic participation or real empowerment and control. Looking at John Nelson's varieties of participation, we look at the categories of horizontal participation and vertical participation. Looking at horizontal participation, we see collective efforts such as voting, campaigning, lobbying and influencing public policy. So, this is at the horizontal level. In vertical perspective, we look at relationship based participation between public and the elites, example patron-client networks. Participation in administrative processes include community involvement in planning, technology adoption, local projects and civic programs. Then there are other forms of participation in this segment also. The UN Capital Development Fund identified levels such as information sharing, consultation, consensus building, partnership and self-management. Herein the focus is more on people's participation in these levels. Pretty's forms of participation talks about passive participation, consultative participation, functional participation, interactive participation and self-mobilization. So, overall these categories help us understand what sort of participation do people portray when it comes to the participation development process. These forms show the shift from token participation or symbolic participation to community power. These forms show the shift from token participation or symbolic participation to community empowerment. So, let us also look at the advantages and disadvantages and try and understand people's participation from a more sociological perspective. So, looking at the advantages, we see it encourages effective social change and community ownership. People's participation improves project success, sustainability and relevance to local needs. People's participation also promotes self-reliance, local capacity building and empowerment. It enhances use of local knowledge, skills and resources, and it helps include marginalized people or the groups, especially women and the poor in the whole process. While we have taken a look at the advantages, we should also take a glimpse at the disadvantages of people participation. Participation can be time consuming and expensive. It requires more funding, more budget is to be poured in such processes. It may not be practical in situations of extreme poverty and crisis given the economic and social burden. It can disrupt or disturb existing power relations and create conflicts. If there is a huge power dynamics at play, it can actually lead to a lot of power relations to be disrupted. Sometimes shifts development responsibilities from the state to communities. So, and they are not prepared to shoulder such responsibilities. So, it comes as a disadvantage in such a scenario. And it often fails to address deeper issues of power and inequality, because if there are masses to voice their concern and they are not addressed properly, then people's participation can actually go haywire. So, in this particular segment, we saw what are the categories of or varieties of people's participation, how they can be just tokenistic or symbolic in nature to be more integrated in nature, how they can lead to people's participation and their empowerment, how people can actually make sure they get the ownership hold of the whole decision making process. And we also looked at what are the advantages and disadvantages of people's participation. If it is not planned in a proper manner, if it does not have a proper framework or a structure, it can actually go haywire. So, if you are looking at people's participation, there is also an economic angle. You have to put in more budget, you have to have more plans for the road of development, you have to have more streamlined planning in place. So, when we are talking about government interventions, we are talking about processes, we are talking about programs and schemes, and we want to initiate people's participation. It is not an easy job. It requires thorough planning, thorough framework in place, and we need to identify maybe representation from communities to come across and then share the responsibility, shoulder the responsibility. We can have crowdfunding, we can have crowd mobilization, and we can initiate better people's participation in a more democratic manner with thorough planning, with thorough structure in place. So, in this segment, we came across various varieties of planning people's participation. We can actually understand the nuances of people's participation, and it's not only at the country level, it's a concept that is that is to be seen at a global context. So, we need to understand these issues, these nuances, and then plan accordingly when it comes to social policy. So, the whole idea of social policy framework and people's participation in the framework depends on how well it is planned, how thoroughly it is planned. As students of sociology, you should understand these nuances, make sure that it's an all-inclusive approach, people have due representation in a dignified manner for a just and equal society. Thank you so much.